Sometimes I've had this little thought about writing a book about the first person in history, like ages ago. Who was the first person that decided that food tasted fabulous and we should be eating for pleasure, not just for survival? Hello, Catriona. How are you?
I'm well.
Oh, she's not there. Oh, here she is. So now tell me, is it raining at your house?
It's just stopped. We've just got a little brief reprieve, but it's been pouring, yeah.
Isn't it fabulous? I mean, just perfect for the gardens.
It is. And it's been a long time since we've had that rain, just beautiful rain.
I
know. Just not tropical, destructive or too light, just rain.
It's been a beautiful day. Now, Catriona, tell me, what is your first piece of random shit that you'd like to share?
Okay, so this piece here is, yes, terrifying in some respects, but it's a beautiful piece of food kitchenalia. And it's actually a cherry stoner. And I just look at these things and I just imagine somebody using this at some point. It would have attached onto a bench and you put your cherries in here and then you press the lever down and out would pop the stones through these two bottom holes underneath.
That's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, you've got someone who really put all of that design effort into to work out what was going to be the most efficient way of stoning the cherries.
Right. There's many different designs. I've got probably 4 cherry stoners.
Oh, really?
So they're all different. So they would have been made in factories and foundries. A lot of this stuff comes out of America, out of the States.
Okay.
And this one here is it's dated in 1917, stamped on the bottom.
Wow.
And it's the home cherry stoner. So these things would have been used in kitchens in the States more than likely, with the big cherry farms. Everybody had farms, not everybody, but a lot of people had farms back then because they needed to grow things and then preserve those things. And so this would have been made around the time of the First World War. So it's probably important for people to actually get their preserving done, put away, because they were at home and they weren't having, of course, imports or anything like that at the time, and they really needed to get those food products put away. So America's got a huge following and a huge uptake of preserving. They still do it to this day, and but I don't know if they use something like this anymore. We've come a long way from one of these, but they're just beautiful. The way they're made, and I just think about the boys. Would have been boys all putting that together, and just the ingenuity of working out how to push a couple of stones through the cherries. You get single ones and you get double ones, and this is a double one. That's beautiful. I love it.
It is really very beautiful. And do you think that it would be wealthier families that would have had appliances like that? It's really a food processor, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I think it would have been wealthier families, and I think it was probably something that, that maybe they would have had people making the all getting together in a kitchen and doing a great big row of cherry trees, and so everybody was in there doing their little bit and bottling it all up.
How beautiful.
And putting it away, but it's a beautiful thing. Yeah,
it is
gorgeous.
A beautiful thing. Where did you find it, Catriona?
This probably in an antique shop, and I suppose it is these things. When I look for things, I just see probably the part that cranks onto a bench, and then I think, oh, what's that? And usually it will have stamped on what that item is.
Yes.
And so I've been sort of collecting these things since probably I was in my 20s.
Wow.
I've collected things prior to that, and my first little piece was a nutmeg grater, and it was a beautiful thing from the late 1700s, from 1778, I think it was.
Wow.
And it was a little nutmeg grater, and you put your nutmeg in the top, and a very wealthy man would go into a pub and order a toddy and grate the nutmeg over the top of his toddy. And back in those days, nutmeg and spices were a very rare commodity.
Yes.
And they were a sign of wealth.
Wealth.
And so it would have been a very wealthy man that had one of these nutmeg graters in his pocket.
Yeah.
So that was my very first piece of my collection, and then I went on and, I sort of worked in the food industry, and I had an interest in food, and just decided, that I loved it back then, and just when I saw pieces, we travel a little bit, and if I saw something I liked, I'd get it.
Just grab it.
But the Sunshine Coast is really unforgiving with these pieces, and they do rust a bit, and
Yes.
so they need to be stored properly.
Yes.
And this would have been a lovely green piece at some point. When you ask me where do you find them, well, you usually find them in the rusty old bits of junk and the bottom box down the back of the
I'm going to keep my eye out for things like that. That's beautiful.
Yes. And I don't pay a lot of money for them. I've never really spent a lot of big bucks. You can still get these online,
Wow.
shipped here from the States. So I think there's about 3 or 4 of them I saw the other day there. But of course, it's the cost of getting them here. So, but they are still around, swinging around.
And what's your second piece that you'd like to share?
So, in the same theme, this beautiful piece here it's a raisin stoner.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
So, it's got a little wooden wheel at the front here, but inside it's got all these little tiny
Yes.
plates. And I don't use this one, obviously, it's a bit too rusty and everything, but when you turn it, the little plates inside turn. Sorry,
Yep.
it's a bit rusted up. But once again, the same sort of thing. You clamp it onto the bench. And how this relates, this is a really interesting piece, because why on earth would you be taking your stones out of your raisins?
Yes.
Right? So I'll just put that down for a moment, and I'll refer back into this wonderful book here.
Oh, Mrs. Beaton's.
And it's Mrs. Beaton's Household Management. And, she was just such an incredible lady. She put this together, and she was 23 when she put this great big book of how to manage your own home, how to cook everything, what to do. And the big thing was that you couldn't have raisins in your cake because you get the crunch. So there's a raisin cake recipe in here, and it says seeded raisins. So you would have
So you
used
needed your
something like-
raisin seeder to be able to make the cake properly.
That's it. So you wouldn't have dared have seeded raisins in your cake, because you just get that crunch and break probably one of those old teeth. But Robin, here I semi-dry my raisins. These ones are semi-dried. Sometimes I fully dry them.
Yes.
But inside you can see there's a few, you can't, maybe there.
Yep.
But you can see that there's a few seeds,
Yes.
and they're quite laborious to take out. So that would have been a godsend to be able to get rid of those raisins out of with this type of a machine. And it's beautiful because it actually says on there wet the raisins.
So that's the instruction manual, just in very plain English on the side.
That's it. That's it, because it will just all stick and gum up in there.
Yeah, of course.
If you didn't wet your raisins. So you've got to wet your raisins to put it through this contraption.
So do you think there's a modern equivalent of the raisin seeder?
No.
Oh, okay.
I've never seen it. And the problem is that we're not getting the raisins that we used to get. So our raisins, I don't know if you've noticed, are getting smaller and smaller, more like a sultana. And
yes,
I needed golden raisins. And we used to get golden raisins here, up until about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we're not getting them anymore. Whether those grapes have actually gone into winemaking, I don't know. But we haven't had golden raisins for a long, long time. And so I actually dry my own raisins now, because I've got a couple of special cakes I like to make at Christmas time. So I do dry my own raisins.
Wow.
But it is laborious getting those seeds out. And
Sure.
so
They must taste amazing though, Catriona, because if you've got home dried fruit to go into your fruit cake, I think I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah, it's really amazing, the difference, and they're really large. I get the really large grapes.
Yes.
With
And
plenty
they're
of
the
flavour.
green grapes, aren't they?
Yeah, green grapes, or you can use the black grapes. These black ones, I just semi-dry those because I actually put them in the freezer after they've been half dried.
Okay.
I put them in the freezer, otherwise they'll go mouldy. But I use those in focaccia and make a grape focaccia, and it's beautiful.
Wow.
And having the moistness in there, it's just gorgeous. So that's what I use with those. But with the, I suppose these days I've changed things now, and I don't collect as much of the old stuff anymore. Mm-hmm. But I've started collecting, and not collecting, but actually I've started to salvage things that would otherwise go into landfill or go to a place where they get looked over, put in a corner, perhaps they get repurposed for the garden or things like that. And I see things and I think, hang on a minute, that actually will help us to make our food. And I get those things and I keep those things and I clean those things and I bring them home. And often if I see somebody that I feel could use that, I'll suggest having it. So one of the things I get is, now I know you probably can't see, oh yeah, you can see that a little bit.
Oh yes, a black tray.
Yeah, it's not a wobbly board, but it's come from an old oven that was otherwise disposed of.
Okay.
And this makes the most fantastic drying machine for your grapes.
Because so is this as in sun drying?
Yes. So it really acts as a heat sink. And I suppose what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't matter how small the amount of food you actually take and dry, put it away and then later on use it. So it's one of the things I'm quite passionate about now is actually showing people what to do with their very small produce from a very small space in their gardens and homes.
Yes.
And I think probably people might think, oh, you need to buy a dehydrator, or you need to buy something, or you need to have this, or you need to have that. But you actually can produce and have such a range of food. And one of the other, excuse me while I pop down.
Yes.
Is these are amazing for drying. So I salvage those.
Fantastic.
And they used to be for paper plates.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And
it was a 70s thing. We used to have our barbecues as children with our paper plates on those.
Fabulous. And now and then you see them pop up at an off shop. So if I see these, I'll grab them, take them home, scrub them up with salt and vinegar and put them in the sun and clean them, let them get really clean. But they actually make the most fantastic drying machines.
So what have you got there? Just lift it up for me, Catriona. Oh, chilies.
I think it'll fall out, but lift it
okay.
up. But they're chilies. Little chilies.
Nice.
Okay. And I'll take the stalks off that.
Yes.
And I'll grind it up and I'll use it to make a Japanese seasoning. Okay.
Oh.
So the thing is that looking at this, you sort of think, oh, it's just a basket and it's just a bunch of chilies. What can I do with that? Oh, it's too hot for me to make. But if you mix it with sesame seed and you mix it with this, you can make beautiful Japanese seasoning.
Oh.
The other thing, really, I mean, all my herbs, any little bit of herb,
Yes.
if you've got extra parsley, oregano, basil, whatever, if you put them on these and lay it down in the sun and sun dry them, they're beautiful. They retain all their flavour and everything. You've just got to do it on a day with low humidity and sunshine. Bring them in at night, do it again. And you just do it until they are really quite dry.
I did have an experience a little while ago where I was drying some bananas. We've got bananas here and, you know, we have this huge bunch of bananas. So I was drying them and about, 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up remembering that I'd forgotten to bring the sliced bananas in. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just leave it up to fate. And, of course, I walked out the next morning to find that the possums had squished them all into the trays that it was a disaster.
Yes, no, it's fatal leaving it outside because it's either going to be a bat, a rat, or a possum will get something.
Possums.
So,
yes.
Yeah,
but
so
that's a beautiful idea. I'm very keen to know that Japanese recipe or the recipe for that Japanese seasoning. That would be delicious.
That's great because really, and then you can use that in your sauerkraut if you have any of that sort of thing. It goes really nicely with all of that. But the black metal tray, this really, you could have a bank of these, and you just put your grapes, cut your grapes if they're big in half.
Yes.
Lay them all out. And once again, dry them. And it's surprising how much I might sort of do probably 1 kilo of grapes dried. That's after drying. And because they're really high in sugar, if I dry them really well, I don't need to put them in the freezer. It's only if they're half dry.
Okay.
But they're extraordinary when you do it yourself. And you just, so I suppose really I try and sort of think now as well about so much of this packaging that we're starting to see. So we're now really buying so much food that's packaged within packaging.
I know, it's hideous, isn't it? And then, not to mention the food miles that it has travelled from one place to another, only often to come back again to where it started.
That's right.
And I also wonder about, I know that when I've prepared something from scratch, which is most of our cooking, I tend to savour it more and appreciate it more, and pay more attention to the eating of it when there's been more effort in the preparation of it. Is that something that you find?
I do. I really do. And I find also that it just goes further.
Yes.
And I think what is happening is that we're really being conned into buying so much more than
what we need.
They're making the quantity so small within the packaging. If you've got a larger family or a larger you're buying multiples because there's not that much food in there. So I always say to people, if you pick one thing that you eat a lot of and you can make that's one thing less that you really need to worry about buying. But it also, it's probably going to be healthier. It's probably going to be, just the way you want it. a lot of these things also, it comes down to your own packaging and getting that right so that it lasts, so that it's fresh, and so that it's, palatable with after a day. You want it to keep on going and keep on, being nice.
Absolutely.
So, that I do pay a lot of attention when I make the food to really storing it correctly and getting it away. And so I suppose really I've been really, really focusing on collecting a lot of this extra stuff for storage. And we talked about making passata at one point, and really at the moment passata is cheap. People think, oh, it's cheap. But it may not be that way in 10 years' time. It may not be cheap anymore.
And we really do. I think we undervalue produce. I don't think we pay what it's actually worth. And I also think that you said a moment ago that if you can grow or produce the thing that you eat most of in your family, then there's an opportunity. And I believe that you've recently started the Mooloolah Harvest Swap, Mooloolah Valley Harvest Swap.
Mooloolah Valley Harvest Swap.
Yeah, and so there's that real opportunity of people growing what they're good at growing and then coming together and sharing that, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. And that's what we've got. And I think that, you can't do everything.
No.
You can't make everything. You can't, and there's, a little bit of pressure that you've got to have everything and make everything and, But the beauty of Harvest Swap and the beauty of neighbourhood shares and all those things is that, yes, you're right, someone will have something. They might do honey, they might have an avocado tree, they might have a lemon tree, they might have a skill. Perhaps they don't have any of that, but they may come with some jars.
Yes.
They may come with something like worm juice. They may have a worm farm or something like that. So when we get together, we share like for like. So if I was to bring 2 lemons, then somebody else might bring 2 passion fruit, but we don't actually count it in that way. It's really about reciprocating the generosity in a way that fits with you, okay? So we find that, someone might bring home bake. They may have, made a cake, and that's their contribution to it. And it's really about people just coming together and acknowledging that the share. And when we go home with beautiful, glorious baskets of food. And the first thing I do when I get home is lay everything out, clean it off, wash it off, and then it all gets delegated into its place. So I might make a chutney, or I might make a relish, a fresh relish. Some of it will be dried, some of it will go in the freezer, some of it will be stored away in a different way. So because they're fresh out of the garden, they actually last for about two weeks. You can get about 2 weeks out of them. And but the thing is, every time I do participate in the Harvest Swap and I bring those things home, I always think about the love and the care that's gone into that one little thing. It could be someone's brought, half a dozen radishes, and I think about, the children that might have planted that seed, and I think about, the older woman that, she was very generous and she grew flowers, and so she came with her flowers. And the other thing about Harvest Swap and Neighbourhood Share is that sometimes someone comes with nothing, and we say to them, take these seeds, grow them, go away, grow them, come back sometime, and what you've grown, bring it back to us. And
that's a lovely idea. That's beautiful.
It's a really beautiful thing.
And you're really encouraging that community development too, aren't you? And connection and conversations and sharing of knowledge, which is so important.
Yeah, that's right. And it is really, you go to these things and then you can say, oh, well, the bee man down the road or something like that, and such as Charlie's got, avocados on, and so it's really sort of a little bit like that as well. And it's just a very nice way of, people don't just come and drop their swap and then run away with things. Really, it's the interactions and the people that you meet within that 2-hour frame.
That's beautiful.
Is really what's important. So the swap actually comes at the end.
Okay.
And that's actually, the reward at the end. It's not something that comes up at the front.
So that would be ideal too for people new to the Sunshine Coast, and where I am in Palmwoods, we're seeing an increase in population. But to bring these new people into the way of life that we have in the hinterland, which is to grow and share. That's a beautiful way of bringing those people in.
It really is, yeah. And I think Leonie, she sort of had the vision for it, and she said that she sat on a bench for about 6 years hoping that this would go ahead, and she just brought her produce and just waited and waited. And now it's really grown, and people are now really embracing the concept of sharing.
How many harvest swaps are there on the coast?
I know of 3. There's probably including Brisbane, there's 4.
Okay.
So North Brisbane, Burpengary Way.
So that's Mooloolah. There's one at Yamundi now.
Leonie's moves around quite a bit.
Okay.
And she'll go to different farms, but she tends to go from Palmwoods up towards Noosa Way.
Okay.
And then there's one started up at Yamundi as well, at the Black Snack Cafe there, up the back there. But they all have their own flavour. Okay. And that's the really beautiful thing about it. The one in Brisbane, North Brisbane's called Grow, Make and Bake.
Yes.
And they meet in a car park. We also have to move around because this dreadful thing where you cannot get into a community centre or hall without paying anymore. So it makes it really, because we want to keep it free, so it makes it really difficult to find spaces to present a harvest swap from. So we have to wait for the generosity of people to put up their hand and say, oh, look, we'll open up our home.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is that you can't do it out of a community hall because of the costs associated with it.
Yeah.
So I could say, oh, look, come to my house and we'll do a harvest swap, and then that would be the place.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fabulous.
It's really, and I think we sort of look, if someone's got like the one coming this Sunday is Organica Flore.
Oh.
And Kaz.
I love that farm. I love Kaz's farm. It is magnificent.
Yeah.
Go there. If you can go there. It's the best place.
Well, that's where the next harvest swap is.
There you go.
But we're not, because of COVID.
Yes.
So many nice people, I can't invite you in. We have to keep it really tight. So we've actually had to say, look, we're taking bookings, and we'll have to take bookings now until we're out of this period in time.
Yeah.
And it's that's okay. People understand at the moment that that's what we have to do, and. But it's really, I can see that there's another group we're probably going to look at in about 3 weeks' time, about the third harvest swap from now. And 3 girls or 3 families have got together and opened up their backyards, a bit like retro suburbia. So they've opened up their made little farms that they've joined together.
Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
They're 3 neighbours. And this is up at Melham Mountain.
Yes.
And so I've just got in contact with those girls and just said, look, can we please come and do a harvest swap at your place, because we love the concept of people opening up their backyards, and how do they go about that?
That's a wonderful story. I think that I'd like to find out a bit more about that. As well.
Really, and they I think that if they start something off like that, then it's sure to grow. They've got a little stall at the front of their place and they're selling produce from the farm. And that's good to see, because for a long time, Robin, we had councils kind of been a bit stringent about not doing that, but I think they're relaxing a little bit more now, and so you can do a little bit of farm gate stuff now, so which is nice.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Right.
Thank you, Catriona. That I loved seeing those kitchen. What's the word? Kitchenalia.
Kitchenalia, but the ones I've got are kitchen antiques. A lot of them.
Yes.
And we'll finish off with the beautiful egg weigher. So you just pop your little egg in there and you move your little weight here to find out how much it weighs. And of course this is in ounces. And this one is right smack on 57 grams, which is your large egg. And that would have been important because, back in the day, probably, when you got lots of eggs coming in, all different sizes. But the recipe you've got to be careful because if you have too much egg in your recipe, you get a runny cake.
Yes.
Too little, you get a dry cake. So you need to have the right weight.
Particularly in a sponge.
That's it. So that was important, one of those. So I do love my old things. I don't use them practically because they're specials, but I do encourage people to really look around at what's being thrown out, what you find at the op shop. You've got some lovely Chinese containers at the back there, Chinese bamboo containers.
Yes.
And they actually make really great drying baskets as well.
Yes.
Really good. And, this one here, this one was you've seen these around as well.
Oh, yes, they're beautiful. I love those.
So just little bamboo and coconut, and just drying a bit of lavender flower in there, and that will go into making lavender tea later on.
How nice.
So you don't need a lot to make food and to be, just on your journey of just being a little bit more sustainable and self-reliant as far as food goes. So
thanks, Catriona. I'd really like to catch up again and have a much longer conversation over a cup of tea and some scones maybe one day. What do you think?
That sounds... No raisin pips.
No raisin pips.
Okay.
Thanks for joining me.
All right.
Catriona, that was lovely.
All right. Thanks, Robin.
See you again.
Everyone. Bye.
Oh, what are you having for dinner tonight? We're going to have fritters, cauliflower and broccoli fritters using lots of eggs from our chooks, and we love them. They're delicious. Thank you for staying. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Catriona.
That's okay. Hope that was okay.
It was perfect.
Okay. All right.
Fabulous.
But anyway, so I just have got some books here. You were asking me about something yesterday and it reminded me. And I don't know if you've got this series here.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So I'll keep an eye out for you. And it's the...
Oh, you've just frozen. Well, that was good.